Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the EzeeLinux show. This is version 18.6, recorded January the 29th, 2018. I'm Joe Collins. I'm going to be your host, and we're going to be answering your questions. If we were still doing the EzeeLinux Q&A episodes, this would be episode 15. So I decided to recycle the slide. Isn't that cool? Before we get to your questions and answers, I have an announcement to make. We're going to be showing you some love for Valentine's Day. I'm going to give away a computer. And this is the computer I'm going to be giving away. This is an Acer One netbook. And this is a stock picture of an Acer One netbook. This is not the actual netbook you will be receiving, but it looks very, very similar. Okay? I actually packed the computer up before I thought about it and didn't take any pictures. So anyway, I can assure you that it is clean, it is new, and it is in perfect working condition. It was donated to the EzeeLinux project, and it gave me a chance to play around with Linux on it. And I tried a bunch of distros, and I found out that the one that I liked the best running on it was Linux Mint with Cinnamon. So it is actually installed with that. And it is set up so that when you get this machine, you should be able to boot it up and set up your very own user account and start using Linux Mint. You do not have to install it. It is pre-configured by myself. And it's good to go and ready to rock and roll. So create an account, run the updates, you're gone. You're into Linux Mint. This machine is relatively low resource. It has a 2-core mobile Intel processor. It has 2 gigabytes of RAM, and the internal storage is an eMMC, which is an embedded SD card, and it's 32 gigabytes. And that's it. The connectors on the outside, there are 2 USB ports. One of them is USB 2. That would be on the right-hand side, and the one on the left is USB 3. There is a connector for HDMI if you want to send the output to a monitor or a TV. And then you have a headphone jack, and that's it. There is no Ethernet jack on this machine. You must use it with Wi-Fi to make it work. And the only other input is the little power connector that you charge it up. It has really good battery life on Linux, probably like maybe 3, 4, 5 hours, which is good. Depending on whether you're going to be watching a bunch of videos. I've actually used it enough to be able to give you that information, and it's surprising what you can actually do with it. You can watch YouTube videos, and you can record YouTube videos. I actually have one up here on the channel that was recorded on this machine, and be amazed what you can do. The only handicap to it is the storage, so you can have a bunch of USB sticks. You can throw data on that if you want to, or figure out some way around that. And there it is. It is an Acer One netbook, and it runs Linux Mint quite well. And if you want it, you have to register to win, and you do that by going to EzeeLinux.com and looking at the Contact Us page, and there you will find a heading which you can choose for the message that you send that says Acer One giveaway. Okay? You send me that, and I will put all of those names into a hat, literally a hat, and I will draw one of those names on Valentine's Day and show you some love. And I will send you this computer. Now, you must send me your full address, and you must be a resident of the continental United States. I'm not shipping this out of the country, gang. So I'm sorry to those of you who are watching all around the world. I know a lot of people watch this channel, but I'm not going to ship it out of the country. It's just too hard to do. So within the continental United States, I need an address. I need an address that is verifiable and that you can receive packages from. Now, if you enter the contest, do not be afraid of your information being leaked out, given away, kept in a database. You are not going to be spammed. I respect your privacy. As soon as I do the contest, all of the addresses are going to go poof. I'm going to delete the files, and that's going to be the end of it. I'm not going to hang on to your information. And do keep in mind that this is a low-end computer. It is not a powerful laptop. You will not be able to play games on this unless they're very simple. You can't do video editing, that sort of thing. But if you just want to play around with Linux and you want to play around on the internet, it's a cool machine. And so if you want to win the Acer One, then check out EzeeLinux.com, go to Contact Us, and send me your name and address. No, you don't need to plead. You do not need to tell me why you want it, because it's going to be a random drawing. I just need a name and address. That's all I need. So that's it. And I'm expecting a large volume of addresses to be sent, so I will not be able to confirm everybody's, entry, and only enter once, because all of the names will be going into a hat, okay? So you don't increase your chances by entering more than once. That's something that I need to say as well. So have at it, gang, and good luck. And the reason why I'm doing this is just to show you guys some love, because the community has been wonderful lately. We're up to 45,000 subscribers. We're doing all kinds of crazy likes and following on the EzeeLinux Facebook page. 4,000 people thus far, maybe more now. I haven't looked in a little while. And you've got a lot of great comments and suggestions and people who have helped the project in many ways. So this is my way of saying thank you. And I will be doing the drawing on or about Valentine's Day. So just to recap, enter at EzeeLinux.com, go to the Contact Us page, and look for Acer 1 giveaway. That is going to be the heading. Send me a message. Make sure that you are a resident of the continental United States and that you give me an address, all the information I need, zip code, and the whole 9 yards, where I can actually send this box to you. And then stay tuned, because the drawing will happen on or about Valentine's Day. There you go. So let's move on to asking. Well, you guys are going to do the asking, and I'm going to do the answering of your questions. And we're going to start. The first one here that we have comes from Herb. And the first question is, Dell has some nice laptops that can be purchased with Ubuntu. That's his spelling, not mine, gang. So cut him some slack. I do all kinds of typos all the time, so I had to just let his go through. I thought about correcting it. I said, nah, I got to show that I'm not the only person who gets this screwed up. Anyway, the machines come with Ubuntu pre-installed. However, you recommend that a new user might be better off with using the Mint distro. Is it difficult to remove Ubuntu and install Mint on a new machine? Also, do you have a favorite guide book to suggest for a newbie to learn the Linux OS? Yes, I will keep my Mac while learning the Linux OS. Well, that seems like a good strategy. If you're going to buy a machine that is made to run Linux from Dell or System76, or if you're in Europe, you may buy one from a company like Introware, then you can be assured that you can install any other Linux distribution on it. So if you buy one that comes with Ubuntu, and a lot of them ship with Ubuntu, and I think System76 these days is shipping with either Ubuntu or their own little spin called Pop OS, either one, you're going to be able to reload that machine. Now, whether that's going to be the best idea or not, especially if you are a complete novice user, then like in the instance of the Dell machine here, it comes with Ubuntu installed, and you're going to have support from Dell, so you'll be able to pick up the phone and you'll be able to call them and go, hey, it broke and it doesn't work, can you help me? Maybe it wouldn't be such a hot idea to jump from Ubuntu to Linux Mint right up front. However, all of these different providers also have guides and support for you to install other Linux distros on them. So you can call Dell and say, hey, I'd like to install Linux Mint. And I bet you would find that there is a guide there that's either online or somebody can give you the information you need to make sure it works. And a neat little trick for anybody who wants to install Linux on anything is go online, go to google.com, and type in the following sentence: install Linux on make and model of computer. If you're going to be doing Ubuntu, put Ubuntu in there. If you're going to be doing Linux Mint, put Linux Mint in that line. So install Linux Mint on your make and model. You'd be amazed how much information will come up about how to get Linux working on that machine. If you see a lot of people come up and they were having a lot of problems, you might want to think twice about it, because it might be difficult to get running. However, a lot of times when people ask me, will Linux run on this machine? That's the first thing that I do, is go look it up for myself, and then I can advise them. And that's the sentence I use to put in there. So if you can install Ubuntu on a machine, you can install any Linux distro. That's pretty much the rule. And that's one of the reasons that a lot of companies that sell machines that are pre-installed with Linux ship with Ubuntu or some sort of Ubuntu spin, because Ubuntu is kind of universal. If the machine will run Ubuntu, it should run anything else. Next question. Do you have any experience with scanners being broken by recent, i.e. last 6 to 12 months software updates? And this question comes to us from Jeff. Well, thank you for the question, Jeff. And there was actually a lot more to Jeff's question, but I really pared it down quite a bit because he sent me some information, and he actually sent me a link that pointed to a bug, and he wanted to know if I could help him to find a workaround for the bug. The general answer for that is no. If it is a bug and it is known by the operating, known by Ubuntu or Linux Mint or whoever the bug is reported to, whenever you find the bug, that means that people that are way smarter than me don't know what to do about it. Because if there's not a solution or a workaround posted with that bug, then there's not much I can do about it, to tell you the truth. So this particular situation turned out to be involved with an Epson scanner, that there was some sort of update to another component of the system, and now the driver doesn't work. And whose fault is that? Well, let me tell you, that's the OEM's fault. The original equipment manufacturer's fault. They're not supporting their own driver. Excuse me. And there's not much that I can do about that. Somebody at Epson will have to get off their butt and write a new driver. This happens all the time with printers. Printers suck. I hate printers. I hate answering questions about printers. I hate trying to configure printers. I hate working with printers. I just had 2 printers die myself. I can give you this little bit of advice. Probably the easiest manufacturer to work with as far as Linux is concerned is HP. Because 9 times out of 10, HP printers, they just work when you plug them in on Linux Mint, and somewhat on Ubuntu as well. Or it's just a matter of installing a driver and then you're up and running, and that's it. And they just work, and they do support them quite well. But every other manufacturer out there, it's hit and miss, and some are better than others, and that's one of these situations. So, I'm not saying don't send me a question about your printer. It might be something quite simple, but many times I can't help because it turns out to be a driver issue, and it turns out to be just really crappy support from the OEM. I hate printers. I think printing needs to be completely redone. I mean, not just for people who use Linux, but in general. All of these different machines with different drivers necessary. It is a nightmare. We ought to come up with a universal language that all printers speak and that all computers speak, and when you plug them both together, they all work the same way, instead of all this garbage. And many attempts have been done to do that over the years. There are many different standards, but we really need to get serious about it and say, hey, let's make printing easy. Plug it in, turn it on, damn thing works. I don't understand all this craziness. But anyway, next question is coming from George. He says, I'm interested in learning Linux, but don't know where to begin. Until now, I've been using Windows and Mac OS. I have no command line knowledge, but I'm willing to learn. Can anybody help me get started? Yes, George, somebody can help you. You know who can help you? George. George, here's what you do. You go online and you just start reading everything you can find about Linux, because there is everything that you could ever want to know on the internet. There are videos from people like me who talk about how to get started with Linux, and there are just scads of them. Some of them are great, and some of them are really sucky. It doesn't matter. Watch everything you can. Learn everything you can about Linux. There are books available on Linux. Get a hold of a book. The best way to get started with Linux, in my opinion, and I have said this in many videos, I don't know, folks, let me get a drink of coffee. I got a little frog in my throat. I don't want to be going like, you know, hacking up all over the place and coughing here in the video, but that time of year, you know. Anyway, there's just so much good information up there about Linux, and all you got to do is go find it and learn. Linux is a journey. It's not something that you can just read a book and then, oh, I know everything about it. I've been using Linux for 10 years, and I learn every day. It is not a destination. It is a journey. So your journey begins by reading and listening to and watching everything you can about Linux, and then get yourself a junk machine, one that you don't have to put a lot of money into but will still run Linux fairly well, and install Linux on it. Do not get rid of your Mac. You know, hang on to that for now until you get really comfortable with running Linux, and have those two machines and just play with it and learn as you go. That's how we do it. That's how we've all done it. There are some courses you can take through edX. So if you go to edX.com and you type in Introduction to Linux, you will find the Linux Foundation's Introduction to Linux course. That's a good one. And I'm going to show you guys a book here a little bit later on that's actually a good one to get started with as well if you do want to learn about the command line. All right, this is a pretty good question. It says, "Hi Joe, if you could find the time, would it be possible to explain SSH to connect computers on a home network?" I have covered SSH many times in my videos, and I actually, probably the best one to watch if you want to know everything about it is Mr. Desktop, Mr. Server, where we did a real deep dive into SSH. Just do a search on YouTube for Connect to SSH, that's the number 2, or Mr. Desktop, Mr. Server, SSH, and it will pop right up. You can watch that video. It's quite long, but we explained everything there is about it. SSH is one of my favorite applications in Linux. It is the way that I manage my network. So I'm going to give you all a demonstration very quickly here. So I'm going to open up a terminal. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so it's easier for everybody to see. And I have created my own shortcuts. Let me make sure I typed that in correctly. SSH in. So we'll pick a machine on my network, which is, this is just the last 2 letters of the IP address. So all of the machines on my network have a static IP. It doesn't change. So I can use this little shortcut to jump right into the machine. So now I'm actually, what you see here in this terminal, I am logged in to another machine on the network. So I'm at Dell 12. And I'm doing this video on Dell 11. I've got 3 Dells and a HP. And so what I can do while I'm here is anything that I can run at the command line, I can do on that machine. But also I have this set up where I can do X forwarding. And that's automatically turned on by my little shortcut called SSHN. So if I type in xed, which is the editor that runs, this is the text editor in Linux Mint. I can actually work with text files using this on the other machine. And probably a little bit more impressive would be something like this. So if I open that, let's see if this machine needs any updates. Type in my password. Don't worry about that on the screen. That's just the output from the program running, which is one of the reasons why you sometimes might want to run a graphic application from a terminal. And the reason why would be to see that output, that's errors and whatnot that show up. But this update manager for Linux Mint that's opening up right now is actually running on that other machine. So I can jump on and update that computer. And it does take a little bit of a time, and I see, oh, well, we have a Thunderbird update. So I can go ahead and update that machine and install Thunderbird on it. SSH is not too terribly difficult to learn. You have to install some software, and you have to learn how to set up keys and things like that. I have a deep dive video that I was just talking about Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server, and I also recommend just going online and just do a search for setting up SSH, because SSH is an integral part of Linux, and it is one of those things that once you learn how to use it and get a mastery of it, you go, oh my God, how did I ever live without it? This is better than any other network sharing that you've ever done in your entire life, because it's just so down and dirty. You can use SSH to get into machines on your local network. That means everything running on your, LAN. And you can also use it to get into machines that are on a network. Like I can use SSH to log into my server, which hosts the EzeeLinux page. So there you go. That's everything. That's just a quick introduction to SSH. And as soon as this quits, we will get out of here. And I didn't think it. Sometimes it does take a little while to run things through SSH. X forwarding is a very nice tool, but you have to use pretty simplistic stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and close that, and then I am going to exit. So when I'm done with my SSH session, actually what I'm going to do is not exit. I'm going to power off that other machine, because it doesn't need to be running right now. I've already done my demonstration. Just turn it off. Okay, so now I can exit. And there you go. We're done playing with SSH. Quick demonstration. I know I didn't teach you how to set it up, but you can definitely go online and learn more about it. It is a very cool. Okay, this is a question about XBT, which is a piece of software that actually I distribute, and you can find it on EzeeLinux.com. And I've had 3 or 4 people who have had exactly the same problem with it. So I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to explain what's going on here. And by the way, thank you, Percy, for the question. I backed up my hard drive with XBT onto an external drive. Had to completely erase and reinstall Linux Mint. I tried to restore files to my new Linux Mint installation, but got an error message. All my files are locked up. How do you access those files? Well, you simply plug the drive in, and then you can open it up in a file manager, and you can see everything and drag and drop. The restore function in XBT will only work if the machine has exactly the same host name and it finds a user account for the user who did the backup originally. So if you are going to use XBT to restore your home directory, then those 2 conditions must be met. And I've had a couple of people who, for whatever reason, have decided to reinstall Linux Mint and then try and back it up, and it doesn't work. And that's because they named the machine something else, or they created a user account that's not the same name as the one that they originally had. So in my case, on this machine, this would be Dell-11, and my user account is Joe. If I would take the XBT drive and then plug it into a machine that was called something else, Dell 26, it's going to go, I don't know what machine I'm restoring to, because XBT is able to back up more than one machine. So it has to keep track of that host name, and it also keeps track of the user who actually is trying to do the restore. So you must have an account on that machine to make that happen. One of those 2 things aren't met, it doesn't happen. But if you are just moving data from one machine to another, and you wanted to change the name, and you want to change the username, you still can do it. All you do is plug that in, and then go into the file manager, and then just look for your backup. It's all there is to it. As a matter of fact, I can show you how to do that real quick here while I'm making the video. So I'm going to plug an XBT drive into the system. It just happens to be sitting on top of my computer. And this is actually the one that I use. So give it a second here to recognize said drive. There we go. File manager has opened up. Go to XBT backups. You'll see here's all of the machines. So if I wanted to look at the backup for Dell 14, then I go to that, home backup, and there are the accounts on this machine. And now if I want to get, let's say I wanted to look into Luke's account, and I'm not going to be showing anything that's personal to Luke, then I wanted to see if there's anything in downloads. I can just drag and drop it. Matter of fact, in Nemo, hit F3 and you can split it. So if I want to bring this over to my machine, let's go ahead and just dump it into let's go over here. Go to home. Let's say I want to throw something from here over there. And these are probably some sort of mods for Minecraft. Boom, done. So you can drag and drop. You can use your file manager. It's not locked up. That was one of the things about the XBT program that was very important to me, was that those files be stored in the open. So when I created it, you have full access to everything. Okay? And finally, I've been doing really well with Linux Mint Cinnamon 18.3 until a couple of days ago when I suddenly could not connect to the internet. It appears that I'm connected to the LAN, but Thunderbird, Firefox, and Chrome cannot find the web. I backed up critical documents, downloaded a new ISO file, and re-imaged the machine. Still unable to connect. Thanks for any suggestions, and that question comes from John. Well, first of all, John should have checked his router to make sure that it was functioning properly, because it ended up that he went through all of this garbage, and the problem was not with his computer, it was not with his Wi-Fi card, it was with the router itself. As a matter of fact, I think he was doing wired and it wasn't working. So before you go to the great lengths of reinstalling the operating system, make sure that if you're having internet problems that you check everything from the router to all the hardware between you and the internet service provider needs to be checked, rebooted, before you go and automatically blame Linux for the problem. It is very true that Linux has had some issues with Wi-Fi connections in particular, but usually when you're working with wired networks, you don't even have to think about it, it just runs. And the last thing that I would suspect being the problem would be Linux or the actual NIC itself, the network interface card that you plug your Ethernet cable into. Those are the last two things I would look at. The first thing that I'm going to look at is the router and the modem from the ISP. They're crappy, folks. They're not well made, and unless you go out and buy a new one for yourself and then set up your own router, you can't really be sure how well these things are doing. And so that'd be the first place to look. That's the weak point. So I wanted to make sure that I put that up there for other folks who may be having the same issues. You need to make sure that you check. If you use a dongle too, like a Wi-Fi dongle, like on this machine, my internet connection is one of those Cisco Linksys little USB adapters, and it sits on a stand here on the table. And those little things can get hot and they can crash if you use them a lot. And then the routers themselves can do that. So the last thing that I usually suspect is the computer itself. I always go check out anything between here and there. And, it really helps if you have other devices too, because usually if it quits working on one machine, it doesn't work on the other. And what really helps too is setting up static IP addresses. That seems to make a difference when you don't use the DHCP or the DNS in the routers. And you can look up online, like, to set static IP address for Linux Mint. It's actually quite easy to do. That helps, because then it takes a lot of that off of the router, and the computer itself, basically, when it goes online, when they negotiate, it just says, give me this IP address, and here's my, this is where I'm going to be looking for DNS here. So if you can program that stuff in, it tends to make it a lot more reliable, especially for a Wi-Fi network, I've noticed. But even on a wired connection, that's not a bad idea at all. So, I guess we are done. I'm out of questions, and I've kind of rambled on for a bit. Thank you so much for watching the video. Good luck in the contest if you're going to put an entry in there. Once again, keep in mind you must be a person who lives in the continental United States, and you must give me a full verifiable address that I can send a package to at EzeeLinux.com, which you should check out. EzeeLinux.com. Check out EzeeLinux on Facebook, and also check out FreedomPenguin.com for lots of really cool things about Linux from creators such as myself. I'm there, and many other people are there as well. It's a good place to learn. So, thank you for watching. I certainly do appreciate it. There is one thing that I wanted to tag onto the very end of this video. People ask all the time about books. I've gotten this, and I've posted this several times, especially on the Facebook page. This is my preferred book to send people to if they want to learn how to use Linux at a command line, and they want to learn more about how the system works. It is called The Linux Command Line, and it's a book by William Schatz. And I'm not going to give you a link because there are tons of links to it. You can buy the book, and it is also available as a downloadable PDF in an open source kind of way. So if you want to buy a paper copy, you can go to Amazon or whatever your favorite bookseller is. You can get one, and you can also find the PDF if you prefer to read books electronically. So just a real quick last note there. The Linux Command Line by William Schatz. Great book. I use it as reference all the time, and definitely worth checking out. And that's it for the EzeeLinux show. Thanks for watching. We'll do it again soon.